Hello, everyone. I'm David. Now, lately I've been telling you about the others. And when I say others, I'm talking about that I believe in, that is greater and better than all. That there is something that is smarter than us, bigger than us, wiser than us, stronger than us, in all things. And I'm about to tell you about some of the things I've seen, not just in the past, but I've seen in the future. There's lots of you going to turn this away at this moment, but don't do that yet. Let me give you a little history of being in a poor life and the things I've seen from the past that did not work because they did not have the right concept. But when I say what I've seen in the future is where this concept was executed to a higher form. We all kind of migrate from one place to another, building up cities, building up little small towns, creating metropolitan places and things like that. Well, reason why we migrate is because we're looking for that better life. We're no better than victors in the old days, going from place to place, hoping to strike it rich. Some of the places, from the past were cow towns where they butchered and divvied up cows or pigs or chickens and things like that. Those were the processing plants. And people gathered there because there was promise of work. Not much work that you liked, but you did it because otherwise you had no money and the soup lines were the only other choice. But there's other things too. There are plants that cotton factories are what we call mill workers. And they would flock to certain mills in certain towns in order to make a little money to have a little bit of a better life. Coal miners is another one. Coal mining towns, such a big thing. People flocked to the coal mines because that was a place to work. They knew they could get work. It was there. It was dark, dusty, dirty, grimy, but they worked. Shipyards, places where they founded, made steel, aluminum, and places like that. Places that make cars and all like that. Well, each and every one of those places where there was a good manufacturing, there was good towns, good work. The towns that was close to it did not support the people coming in. And so what each one of these uh, factories or what I'm going to call millwork decided to do was build their own little town. And they didn't care about governing or whatever. But I'm going to use one, the coal mines, which I know that they did. They would have these little satellite towns where people would come in and work, and they work at these places, and the coal miners and coal owners that own these places, they would buy up these strips of land and let the people come in and buy up the town as long as they're working at the coal mine now. And these houses were owned by the coal mine, but the people could live there and pay a rent that was lots cheaper than any place else. Now, some of these places, towns, were far away from shopping. So, other than Montgomery Ward's or Sears Catalog or J.C. Penney's or whatever like that, they had to have certain things. So, they had a company store. And these company stores, the miners could go in, buy the food they needed, buy the soap, basic things, and put it on a charge, kind of an account. And at the end of the month, The coal miners, the owners, would take out what is owed to the store and give the rest to the coal miners. Now, this was standard practice. Of course, what was left over wasn't much, barely enough for them to buy anything at all. The poor life of a coal miner. It's also part of the song 16 Tons. I owe my soul to the company store. That's part of it. You know, Loretta Lynn said that she brought up as a coal miner's daughter in a place way up in Butcher Holler. Well, that's just part of the life. But the cotton mills had places. I'm sure that you've heard of these what's called mill towns, where they would have these homes and everything like that. Well, the homes could be built, but the people building it were the individuals, but the companies owned the house until you paid for it. The company owned the land until you paid for it. The way you paid for it was keep working with the store, with the company. That's the way they did it. The concept was pretty good to a point, but the owners were greedy. They wanted cheap, free labor, and that's what they all got. Some got caught into it, and they had no other choice but to do it. The same thing was happening with the cities. The cities were popping up around these places, and the cities couldn't afford to pay their people that much, but they paid them what they could just to keep them around there. And the money was coming in by these corporations and these owners of them to keep the cities going. But everybody paid taxes, so everybody thought they had a hand in what was going on. Was that cheap labor, you get cheap work, shoddy work. And so when things started changing for employment and all like that, back and forth, different places and all, well, unions came in and changed things, get more money here and there. That's all right, but the owners didn't like that. And what owners could do with a corporation, whatever they were making, is move it off out of the country to someplace else. And that's what they did. They got the cheap labor. They still kept doing the same thing, building these shoddy homes and everything like that for over there in a different country. And some of these towns lost these big mills and the money that was coming in, so they had to come up with other things. And it kept going on and on. Even places like New York, at one time, it was good to go there and to work for Westinghouse, because that's electrical, work for a public water system, work for a telegraph system. You had lots of broadcast stations there, and you go to work for them there. But still, you got pennies on the dollar. Thus led to all the gangs and mobsters and all like that coming in. It was set to fall, no matter what. I think at one time in my life I said there is a number for everything. And McDonald's and Kentucky Fried Chicken and Jack in the Box and all these other famous fast food places and all these other major shopping places are finding out that number dwindles after a while. You reach a peak, then it kind of slows down. When it does, they start losing money. And thus, when they start losing money, they can't pay the workers, they have to go find someplace else. Just think about Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, steel towns, brought the steel mill in, and as better steel and cheaper for them, so people started bringing them in. Then they changed it up a little bit and still changed here in America, and it became cheaper again. But even then, there were people that got shot in the transformation to bring better money and better work conditions in. Well, I know what is all this leading up to? I'm leading you up to that we had the same thing happening. We have all these large corporations going on around here, and people are flocking back and forth. Amazon is one of them. Big place. They're big shopping. You gotta find it. A Walmart. They're big shopping and everything like that. Big corporations. Google, Facebook, all these places are big corporations, and they got lots of money to spend to make Tesla coming out with the new automobiles and EV cars and all this other stuff. They're big corporations. But their problem is the, each and every one of them, they got to have workers. They got to have people that they can rely on to do the work. Some of the big transportation hubs around here, some of the other ones, they're having a hard time bringing people in because nobody wants to work for nothing. Risk their life, public life, and find out things have nothing to do with the rest of their lives. And thus, you find people on Social Security finding that out now. But what has all this got to do with that there? Back then, it's not the same. It is the same. It is the same. But it's the execution of it. When you start thinking about what needs to be done to bring people up and do it right, you need to have a place where somebody can have a family, have a home, raise their kids, have decent education without any prejudice, any worries, or anything like that. And you say, well, there's not a place on earth like that. That's true, but there could be. Now, I'll tell you about the others that in a blink of an eye, I can see things that's happening. And in one of the blinks that I had, I saw the society of people living and working together, regardless of what the political parties were doing at a different place, regardless of what other townships were doing, they did their own little thing. And what is their own little thing? They set up their own little village. Now, their own little villages that I saw were totally green. They did not go by uh, the same type of power source that everybody else did. They did not go by the same water filtration that everybody did. They did not use the same waste treatment water facilities like everybody else did. Their infrastructure was large, but yet small enough to where the people that was in charge could manage it. The first thing first, the large corporations would go in and they build their own little village. They would buy up all the land around. No, they would not sell it back to the people. And the people that lived in these small villages never had to pay rent, never had to worry about food. They didn't have to worry about medical costs or anything like that. The size of these little villages, these little towns that was coming up, they lived on alternative energy sources that was total independent of anything that any state or any other uh, electrical unit or power unit would provide to them. They didn't have gas stations, but they did have EV units where you kept your electric vehicles charged up. The distance go from your house to the main working place was no different than walking 5 or 6 blocks at the most. And they encouraged that. But in case that you couldn't, everything was built so that it was a single family unit that would be a mother, father, and two children. Three if they wanted. The limit was not there. Each unit was based upon what the person wanted. And it was a circle, like a circle of wagons. And each circle did not mean that you were higher up. Each circle held a wedge of people, and those wedge of people were the people that worked at a certain specific venue. They knew what they could do and what they couldn't. I mean, let's take people that's in computer programming or computer technology or development like that. They would have their own wedge in this circle that would go in, and all those houses within that wedge and still in a circle, they were the ones associated with each other, and they knew what they were doing. They knew how they could do it. They knew their little specific point. Now, one thing for certain, on that outer circle, they had places that would raise their own cows, their own pigs, their own chickens, and all this stuff was done in a rotation manner. And so you would have your farmers, your ranchers, uh, and you would have your greenhouses and stuff like that. So all the food could be raised there. They didn't have to worry about bringing food into their little village. It was there. It was set up. A mail coming in was set up in a central place within the village. The mail would come in, and if you're in your wedge, then somebody within your wedge was the one picking up the mail and bringing it to your house. You had deliveries, but then there was a warehouse where the deliveries of large packages and all was taken. And inside that place where your deliveries was taken, like that large thing, you can go in with the same house key that unlocks your door, go in there, find your same number that's set up in the same type of a wedge, and go in there and pick up your item. You can buy whatever refrigerator, stove that you wanted, but it had to be green. You couldn't come in, no natural gas like that, so everything was electric. There was none of this bringing in coal oil or anything like that. Everything was green. The power source coming in there, like I said, was alternative power. Everything was EV. And if you had only 5 to 7 blocks to walk to work, you could walk to work. Or if you wanted, you had your little EV that could take you. And you said, well, who would run this? Well, except for the corporation that need to have people in there running certain things. The management of the town essentials, the village essentials, was managed on a rotating basis. Nobody could be in any office for more than a year. And you had to pre-qualify before you can get into that office. In other words, a police captain could not be a police captain if he had not been qualified to do that. Okay? A nurse could not be a doctor if she was not pre-qualified for that. Emergency medical system, same thing. Each one of the municipalities offices in there would run on a rotating basis where nobody was in there for more than a year at a time. So they knew going in they had to do just their job and nothing else. So they only had a year. Any type of upgrade or change to the system had to come in with a full vote of everybody in there. And the way that you voted was anybody that was 16 years of age or older could come in there and vote. You were giving, when you come in and accepted to the job in the position and to be in the village, you were given a card that was yours, your identification You were there. No, you didn't have to wear it on your outside. You could hang it around your neck, put in your billfold. But same thing, that card could not just get you to any place. You could get you to where you were going to go. So on that card, it would list all the educations that you have and what you qualified for. And when it came your time to serve, you were not just voted into office. That was what your next position was to be. But if you wanted to change how everything's set up in the village, in the municipality, it had to take a vote. And everybody that was 16 years or older had to go, could go in and vote. They had to go in. And voting took place for 1 full year. You couldn't vote twice. You could only vote once. And if you did not go and vote, you were given a warning, 3 warnings, and you were moved out of the village permanently. You could not come back, no matter what your job position is, whatever. It means that you were not participating in what they had set up. They want your participant, want you to be a part of everything. So that's the way it was set up. All the farmers, they cannot go in and work as computer tech or um, doctor, lawyer, whatever. Even the lawyers, they would come be brought in, but they can only hold the job and position for a year. Then after that, they're out. If you broke a law in there of any kind, any of the rules, you were given a warning. Second time, you were advised that the third time you would be put out. Is there any going back to where you take away that one warning? Yes, it's 5 years without any problems. That's a long time. But let me tell you another benefit. The schools. The schools are set up on a curriculum that is called the SRM or SRE. Each way you want to look at it. It's science, reading, and mathematics. And that's the way it was set up. So that when you went in, your child went into a classroom after the eighth, fourth grade on up, you went in there and you could progress at your own pace. They were set up with a computer terminal that would do just what they needed for that. There was teachers there, but there were aides too. All of fourth grade was in one class. So you had 12 buildings within that circle. And in those 12 circles, right close to the top, you went to the one that was for the fourth grade. And in that fourth grade, all the students were together. And while they were together, they went in and they sat down and they took their ID, logged it in. And they sat there at the computer and did work according to the science, reading, and arithmetic. SRAs, SREs, SRMs. They're, each one of these little villages have it set up a little bit differently, but they all set up to read. And there was really no fourth grade on and there was no preschool or anything like that. It was that mother stayed at home until the child was able to go into a classroom type of setting. Classroom type of setting, the teachers were there, all of them in one room, all these teachers at the same time. Some of the young kids were separated from the others. And so they would have 4 groups: preschool, first grade, second grade, third grade. And each one of them was getting the child ready to go into the fourth grade, fourth one. And as the child progressed, in their learning and things they were placed up. Now, you talk about science, which includes social studies and all like this, reading, which included history and other things that you need to know about hygienes and stuff like that. I mean, other things besides just reading, but its main form is about reading. Mathematics took you from everything from basic math all the way up to quantum physics. But you worked on a package and you did it on your own, according to the computer. You needed help, it's like here. You press the question mark or you press the help button, and you got somebody coming in on your monitor letting you know what was going on. And you say, well, the school got overcrowded. What about college and all like that? That was up to the individual once they reached it. They could go into the corporation, and the corporation operated their own colleges, but it's based upon bringing people in. Well, maybe you don't want to be a big tech like that. Well, they had other type of ways of coming in. Maybe you come in as apprenticeship. Maybe you come in as a tradesman. Maybe you come in other ways. But to a certain point, the whole idea is to get that student ready to come and work for the corporation. Let's say you don't want to say you're working for Google and you don't want to work for Google. You want to work for Tesla. Okay. Well, you learn what you can, and then you apply to Tesla from this village to Tesla over there. Tesla looks at your work and see your completion, and they say yes. And Google says yes. Then you could pack up, and go over to where Tesla's got their village going and move in and become an apprenticeship with them. Go to their college of learning. Same thing. Let's say you don't want to go into this, you want to understand more about Amazon or Walmart or other corporations like GM or some place like that, or learn more about electrical powers and stuff like that. You can go and learn these things, but these companies were paying for it. You never had to pay for any extra education. You only had to choose. During that, you would have societal things like music class for the kids if they wanted. If they wanted to learn to play football, they could. If they wanted to learn baseball, they could. But this was after the school. This was not part of the school. This was extra. And let's say they get hurt, something like that, playing football or playing baseball, or even while in there, all their medical bills, all their hospital bills, all that was taken care of. Everybody had to have a yearly checkup. Everybody had to have a checkup from the eyes all the way down to the nose, the hearing, and everything every year. And the doctor says they're not there to make a profit. They're there to just be honest with you. Here, right now, you have to find your own PCP. What good does that do you? But I've seen these villages through the eyes of others. They've shown me these things. And now that everybody's quitting, why don't you get together with some of these large corporations and explain how you think things should be and see if they're not doing something similar to where they can pay for your education and bring you in. I mean, that's how lots of places used to do for teachers. And going to teach for certain states say, okay, I'll pay for all your education that you need to become a teacher, but you have to sign a contract to work so many years for them. And you don't have to pay that back. And that's just the way it was. That's how you got so many teachers. I just want you to understand that things are going to change. You quit your job when you can't afford the gas or the food or anything. Might as well just quit. And if you're not liking what you're doing, why not get out there and try to find something that you do like? In the meantime, why not go to these large corporations like Google and say, listen, I've been in and out of rehab. I've been in and out of prisons and things like that. I want a good job. I'm willing to work for you. Train me, teach me, help me get a home and stuff like that. You know, enough people going to them, things will happen. If there are workers out there willing to come there and do the work and learn, then I'm pretty sure places like Facebook, Amazon, and even Tesla are willing to train you to do it. After all, isn't that what it's all about? And they're going to take care of you and do it the right way, like the Mill Villages used to do, but set it up in the right way. I think you come out better. No more worry about crime calls, just not there. No need to rob or steal or anything like that, just not there. Things can be better. You just got to see it, have a vision, and go for it. I hate to see people quitting right now, but the future is in your hands. Schools are in your hands. You don't need to steal to have money to buy food on your table. When all that money is just saying that I've worked this many hours and I'm this equivalent to what I need to get. When in a certain village that is controlled by corporations, you're getting the same thing. They're getting their labor, the right kind that they need. You're getting your everything you need, plus some money left over to buy extra things. Isn't that what it's about? You still can have your family, have two, three children, raise them in a school where they can be raised and done right. Have them go to a football, music, government, political, whatever. Learn. It's about. It's in your hands. You have control. Take that control and run with it, people. Run with it. I've seen it through the eyes of others. You may not trust what I see in my eyes, but tell me, doesn't it sound better than what you're going through right now? And having to wonder what they're going to do in Washington and what they're not going to do in your local city. There are other alternatives. This is a big country, big world, and we all can live in it peacefully if we just stop and find the solution and do it. This is David, through the eyes of others, letting you know there is a future, just not like what you think it's going to be. Anyway, bye bye.